Hi friends, good morning. Welcome to Myra, your path to success. We need to start today with the subject of GFRS, Global Financial Reporting Standards. But before that, I'll just like to tell one thing. See, this subject is actually based on your subject of financial reporting, FR. And when we started the subject of FR, mostly you would have started it initially only. FR, costing, SFM, they are the subjects which student starts first. So whenever you started with that subject, we all have told you that please ensure that in your final level, you give proper justice to your studies as well as to your articleship. Now, almost when this subject is coming, you will be left with around 6 months or 1 year for your examination. People take these subjects generally at the end. So mostly your 1 year of examination is pending, and at this time, it may be possible like you have not given enough justice to your studies. Sir, time went off in articleship. Sir, I was thinking exams are pretty far. It's okay. That all is gone now. Now ensure the 6 months or 1 year of yours which is pending, please use that in a proper manner. If now onwards you are not giving time for your studies, definitely it becomes difficult to crack the examination. So please ensure now this time whatever is there, you give justice to your studies properly and study in a proper manner. Okay, about me. Many of you know me because you would have taken either FR or auditing from me. I'm Niket. I cleared my chartered accountancy in 2008. So it's almost 12 years since I'm teaching all you lovely students. After I cleared my chartered accountancy, I'm directly into teaching. And I teach two subjects, your auditing and your accounts, that is your FR. The FR and auditing, they are the two main subjects of mine which I teach. I did my articleship at Deloitte, so Deloitte Haskins and Sales, had a very good experience of corporates at that time. Was associated with many companies wherein a lot of consolidation work, IPO work, all that was practically there. So that all has been a very good exposure during that time. For my face-to-face class, I'm associated with Yashash Academy at Bangalore, and I teach over there. So Bangalore as well as Hyderabad generally have a live classes. And for the video lectures, yes, we have my own brand, that is your Myra Education. I was also associated with E10 in past. So E10 was an organization that was into satellite coaching. So we had a very great team in that satellite coaching, many faculties from Delhi, many faculties from Bombay. I was taking it from Bangalore studio. So students will be sitting across various centers across India and will be taking lectures generally from the studio. So that was also one great experience which was there. And now the focus is on basically your video lectures only, you know it. So that's the reason we're having this Myra Education. Okay, now coming to the subject, your Global Financial Reporting Standards. Sir, what do we learn in this subject? This subject, we are learning the global standards related to your financial reporting. So what are the standards prevailing globally? India, we have Ind AS. You have AS. The AS is for those entities having a net worth less than 250 crores. We are having AS, we are having Ind AS. Globally, what is there? That is to be learned. Global Financial Reporting Standards, the standards in order to prepare your financial statements. Now, globally, there are two major set of standards. These are the two major ones. One, we call it as IFRS. Our Ind AS are based on IFRS. So one is IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard, which is UK based. And two, we have is US GAAP, which is basically related to US. The two major, one is your IFRS, which is in UK, and second is your US GAAP, which is in US. So we will be learning in this subject, your significant difference. See the word, significant difference. Significant difference between your Ind AS and IFRS. Sir, your Ind AS are IFRS only, no. They are based on IFRS. They are 99% replica, but 1% modified as to Indian scenario. So we'll be learning is significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS. And number two, we'll be learning is your significant difference between IFRS and US GAAP. Now see the wordings. We are learning significant difference. We are not learning that standards in detail. Just imagine when we took your subject of FR, you had all the Ind AS. FR subject itself took around 220 hours of coaching. Imagine your 220 hours goes only in your FR where we are studying only Ind AS. If I need to do IFRS in detail, US GAAP in detail, 200 plus 200, yeah, more than 400 hours we need. And we can't give it. ICA also knows it. So we are not learning your IFRS and US GAAP in detail. We are learning significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS, significant difference between IFRS and US GAAP. Now, I have some basic questions. Which generally the students ask me, sir, how do we go about this subject, all that. So coming just to the basic questions which I'm having. First, sir, when should we start this subject? If I'm starting the subject of GFRS, it's an elective paper. If you are good in FR, definitely this is the paper for you. So when should I start studying this subject? See, the answer is very clear. You should start this subject only when you are done with FR. Only when you are done with FR. Don't start this subject before finishing your FR. Sir, I have done the coaching of FR, but I don't recall anything. I've done the coaching of FR, but I don't recall anything. Should I start with GFRS? I'll say no. Please make sure once your FR is done from your side also. Once your FR is done from your side, then you start this subject. So, sir, when do I start the subject? It is once you have completed FR. Now see the word written, thoroughly. It's not just in coaching. Once you are done with the subject of FR thoroughly, then only start with the subject. Sir, I've taken your video lectures, but I'm not done with FR properly till now. Please stop this video lectures. Make sure you finish your FR thoroughly, then only go about it. We can't take full FR over here again. So we will be revising many concepts of FR. I'll always try to go deep. I'll always try to go with basics. But better is you should have done your FR thoroughly. Second, sir, what do we learn in the subject? What are we going to learn in this subject? I told you two things. One, your significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS, and number two, your significant difference between IFRS and US GAAP. Sir, what do I learn in this subject? The word clearly states significant difference. Significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS. In India, for preparing financial statement, we have Ind AS as well as accounting standards. But for you all people, it's only Ind AS in finals. Accounting standards are there in intermediate. Here we'll be learning in this subject difference between your Ind AS and IFRS. IFRS is applicable in UK. It's actually applicable in more than 120 countries. More than 120 countries have adopted IFRS. India is also one of them. Our Ind AS are based on IFRS. But you need to understand they are from UK. And second is significant difference between IFRS and US GAAP. US GAAP relates to US. Now I tell you, our Ind AS are yes based on IFRS. IFRS are kind of principle based. IFRS are kind of principle based. They outline a principle. But US GAAP are kind of rule based. They give you detailed instruction what to be done in each and every situations. So IFRS is more of principle based, US GAAP is more of rule based. So what do we learn is the significant differences. Third, sir, do we learn them in full? Are we learning basically your IFRS and US GAAP in full? Are we learning IFRS and US GAAP in full? So we learn only the significant differences. We learn only the significant differences, not full IFRS or US GAAP. We are not learning full IFRS or US GAAP. We are just learning the significant differences. No need to write this. This is just for understanding. How we will go about the subject, we are just trying to understand. Okay, and sir, how is the exam pattern? Sir, how do we have an exam pattern for GFRS? Your GFRS exam pattern, they ask you case studies. Yeah, they ask you case studies. Sir, how many marks ke case study? 50 marks each. 50 marks each. In your exams, you are required to attempt 2 case studies out of 3. Each carries 50 marks. So you are required to attempt this 2 case studies out of 3. Sir, we have never done case studies. Don't worry, I'm there. No, we'll be doing it. So in your FR, we did not had case studies, but in your GFRS, you are focusing only on case studies. Each question mostly will be around 6 to 10 pages. So don't expect a shorter question. The question itself, the case study itself will run into 6 to 10 pages. And that's the only thing you need to take care. Be calm, be composed. Don't be kind of fearing that big question ka size. Go very slow, things will be pretty clear. And each case study also has MCQs. So out of 50 mark of case study, generally 20 marks is MCQ in each case study. So each case study there is 20 marks MCQ. 20 marks MCQs in each case study. So each case study carries 50 marks and 20 marks will be for the MCQs. MCQs may be related to the case study or MCQs can be totally different also. The MCQs may be related to your case study or MCQ might be bit different also. Okay, so sir, when should I start this paper? Only when you're done with FR thoroughly. 2, sir, are we learning your IFRS and US GAAP in full? No, we are not learning IFRS and US GAAP in full. We are learning only significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS and significant difference between your IFRS and US GAAP. So paper pattern is we'll be having your case studies. 2 case studies are to be attended out of 3. 2 case studies are to be attended out of 3. Yes, we have an option. That's actually a problem. Imagine 10-page ka question you need to read to select which one you need to do. That's actually a problem. How do we select a question? We'll come to it later. How do we select a question? That will come to it later. 50 marks each case study and each case study generally has 20 marks of MCQs. So this is every time. This is based on exams which have been held till now. If ICAI modifies the paper pattern, they make case study of, instead of 50 marks, they make it of say 25 marks. It's possible. But this is what is going on as of now. Okay, now we start. If you just go to your index, if you just go to your index, keep yourself hydrated, it keeps you fresh. We will be having 16 case studies. Yeah, almost all questions given in your ICI book, your past questions, your mock test paper questions, almost everything has been covered. I'm not telling all, it's almost everything has been covered. 16 case studies we'll be doing. Plus, first we are having, it is list. It is just a list of IFRS corresponding to Ind AS. Our Ind AS are based on IFRS. So actually the numberings are also same. So whatever numberings we have been adopted from IFRS only. Few changes we have done it to make it to Indian scenario, which we need to learn in significant difference between your Ind AS and IFRS. The first we have given is list of IFRS corresponding with the relevant Ind AS. Second, significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS. And third is your significant difference between IFRS and US GAAP. It's IFRS and US GAAP. The first one is Ind AS and IFRS. Second one is IFRS and US GAAP. And I tell you, we are not learning US GAAP in depth. IFRS still you will be learning in depth because 99% it's common to Ind AS, which is already done in FR. So IFRS 99% done, 1% changes we are understanding. The IFRS ka detailed knowledge you will be having, but US GAAP we are not learning in detail. It's just the significant differences, and that's why the exam angle. From exam angle, the questions are mostly based on IFRS, not US GAAP. In your exam, your questions are mostly based on IFRS. Out of your 100 marks, maximum US GAAP related questions are 10 marks. Out of your 100 marks, maximum US GAAP related questions are only 10 marks. 90 marks is basically your IFRS, which is nothing but your Ind AS. And that's why we tell you, you should be thorough with your FR paper. And we'll be having case study, we have questions, we have the solutions, question 1 to 16, solutions of 1 to 60. Solutions mein, part solutions are printed, part will be writing it. Part solutions are printed, part will be writing it. This is just to save your time. Okay, we start with the first thing which is given, that is your list. List of IFRS corresponding to Ind AS. List of IFRS corresponding to Ind AS. Okay, now pay attention. Like in India, we have Accounting Standard Board. In India, we have Accounting Standard Board, which comes out with your accounting standards or Ind AS, and then they are notified by central government. Okay, so ASB under ICI. So under ICI, we have Accounting Standard Board. They formulate the accounting standard or Ind AS, and then they give it to the central government for their notification. The government will then notify it in official gazette. So we have a body named as Accounting Standard Board. Similarly, in UK, they also have some authority. So they also have authority is International Accounting Standard Board, IASB. International Accounting Standard Board is there, that is IASB is there. Now, if you just remember your Ind AS ke numbers, if you just recall your Ind AS ke numbering, we have Ind AS 1 to 41. Yeah, 41 was agriculture. Ind AS 1 to Ind AS 41. Then it starts Ind AS 101. So Ind AS 1 to 41. Then 42 nahi hai. Then it starts 101, 102, 103 till 116. Yeah, 117 is not yet notified related to insurance contract. 117 related to insurance contract, not yet notified. We have till 116, which is on your leases. So we have 1 to 41 and then 101 to 116. So how this numbering came? This all came from UK only. In UK till 2001. In UK till 2001 they had IAS, International Accounting Standards. So till 2001, see the words clearly, this is standards issued till 2001. They had IAS, and they have IAS actually 1 to 41. So we have Ind AS 1 to 41, replica of IFRS 1 to 41. Sorry, not IFRS, IAS. IAS 1 is Ind AS 1, IAS 2, Ind AS 2, IAS 5, Ind AS 5, whatever. So IAS 41, Ind AS 41. So these are issued before 2001. Then they came out with set of new standards, not replacing old. Pay attention. So then basically your UK people came out with new standards which are not replacing the old one. Now 2001 onwards they have the word IFRS, and they have a IFRS 1 to 17. They have a IAS is 1 to 41, IAS, International Accounting Standard, 1 to 41, and they have IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, 1 to 17. With IFRS coming, that IAS 1 to 41 which are there, they are still there. These are some new ones. If the same topic came up, it got replaced. But otherwise, your IAS are still there, IFRS are still there. Now just see our numbering. Whatever is internationally IAS, International Accounting Standard, we have Ind AS same numbering 1 to 41. Whatever is IFRS internationally, IFRS 1, we have Ind AS 101. IFRS 10, we have Ind AS 110. IFRS 17, we have Ind AS 117. So our numberings 101 to 117. Our numbering 101 to 117 is nothing but your IFRS 1 to 17. So our numbering 1 to 41 is IAS 1 to 41. Our numbering 101 to your basically 117 is nothing but your IFRS 1 to 17. And I tell you, IFRS are a newer standards which are issued after 2001. IAS which are issued before 2001 still remains. Your IAS which were issued before 2001 are still remaining. So in UK, they have IAS as well as IFRS, both are still valid. Okay, now many times your standard needs some clarification. Your standards are bit vague and they need to come out with interpretations. For that interpretations, earlier they had SIC. Earlier, before 2001, they had Standards Interpretation Committee, SIC. And after 2001, they have IFRIC, International Financial Reporting Standards Interpretation Committee. So earlier they had basically your SIC. Now they have IFRIC. So earlier it's Standards Interpretation Committee. Now it is International Financial Reporting Standards Interpretation Committee. SIC was still 2001. After 2001 we have IFRIC. But sir, IFRIC coming, whether SIC is gone, the interpretations given earlier are gone? No. Your IFRS were newer standards. Old standards are there. Your IFRS were newer standards, old standards were there. Same way, IFRIC are newer interpretation. Your SIC which were issued before 2001 still remains. SIC which are issued before 2001 still remains. Okay, so we need to understand IFRS is not just one word. So now when I call about what is going on in UK for financial reporting, they have one IAS, International Accounting Standards, which were issued before 2001, still applicable. Second, they have IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, which are issued after 2001. They are also applicable. Then we have SIC, Standards Interpretation Committee. That was basically your interpretations. SIC issues interpretations before 2001. They are still valid. And IFRIC, International Financial Reporting Interpretation Committee, they issued interpretations after 2001. तो IAS का interpretation SIC issued, IFRS का interpretation IFRIC issued. Okay, so now just understand. Whenever as a layman, whenever we'll call the word IFRS, IFRS doesn't mean only IFRS. When we call the word IFRS, IFRS will not only include IFRS, IFRS will also include IAS, IFRS will also include the interpretations given by SIC, IFRS will also include the interpretations given by IFRIC. Technically all are different, but when we say we are learning difference between Ind AS and IFRS, when we say we are learning difference between Ind AS and IFRS, तो our यहाँ पे word IFRS includes IAS, IFRS, SIC interpretation, IFRIC interpretations. All things will use the word commonly as IFRS. Okay, next is the list. List is pretty same. This is list of IFRS corresponding to Ind AS. IAS 1 to 41. IAS 1 to 41 is nothing but your Ind AS 1 to 41. See, IAS 1 is Ind AS 1. Same, it goes on till IAS 41 is Ind AS 41. So whatever we have done in FR, it's ditto same. Now we'll learn the differences between Ind AS and IFRS. And when I say IFRS, it's not only IFRS, it is IAS, IFRS, interpretations by SIC, interpretations by IFRIC. So IAS 1 to 41 is nothing but your Ind AS 1 to 41. Now IFRS 1 to 17. IFRS 1 to 17 is nothing but your Ind AS 101 to Ind AS 117. So if you see over here, IFRS 1 is Ind AS 101. IFRS 1 is Ind AS 101 and IFRS 17 is Ind AS 117. IFRS 17 is Ind AS 117. So what they have under IAS, IAS 1 to 17 is, 1 to 41 is Ind AS 1 to 41. What they have under IFRS, IFRS 1 to 17 is nothing but your Ind AS 101 to Ind AS 117. I hope you are clear with the numbering. Now, those standards, pay attention, those standards which are not applicable for your FR paper, that standards are also not applicable for GFRS paper. Those Ind AS which are not applicable for FR paper, like this insurance contract 117 not yet notified. Then we had that hyperinflationary situation wala, that is again not there. So those standards which are not applicable for FR paper are also not applicable for GFRS paper. This was just the list. So do I need to remember? See, you already know the numbers and names of Ind AS. Automatically IAS and IFRS will come. If it is, yeah sir, Ind AS 40, Ind AS 40 is IAS 40. Sir, if it is Ind AS basically 102, if it is Ind AS 102, it's IFRS 2. So 1 to 41 is same IAS 1 to 41. Ind AS 101 to 117 is IFRS 1 to 17. Just make sure whenever you're writing this paper, whenever you're writing a paper of GFRS, the reference should be given of IAS and IFRS. The reference mein numbers should be of IAS and IFRS. Don't write Ind AS ke number unless question specifically asks about Ind AS. Unless question specifically ask about Ind AS. Okay, so this was related to your list. Similar list they have given for interpretations. Similar list they have given for interpretations. They have SIC interpretations which were issued till 2001, and they have IFRIC interpretations which were issued after 2001. In India, we have appendix mostly for it. In India, we don't have that interpretation, but in our standard, niche appendix is given. In our standard, there is an appendix which has been issued, so we have this interpretations in form of appendix. Whatever interpretations they have issued, we all have it as a part of appendix. Something we don't have. Few of them not applicable for Indian scenario, removed. Few we have added also based on Indian scenario. Again I'm telling, your Ind AS are 99% replica of IFRS, but bit modified to make it to Indian scenario. Like they have IFRIC2. They have a IFRIC2 interpretation number 2. They have it related to members' shares in cooperative entities and similar instrument. Now see the word. Members' share where? In cooperative entities. It is members' shares in cooperative entities. Now think about our Ind AS. Our Ind AS are only applicable to companies. Our Ind AS are only applicable to companies. They are not applicable to cooperative society. And as they are not applicable to cooperative society, this we don't need. Our Ind AS are applicable only to the companies. This is cooperative society. To cooperative society, Ind AS doesn't apply. That's why that corresponding interpretation, we have removed it. Similarly, if I just go down, SIC 7. Now, if you go to UK, there are two main currencies. One is pound, other is euro. Yeah, London mein pound as well as euro. European countries, they have a euro. So they have two currencies. One is pound, other is euro. When they introduced euro, उसमें what to do when transactions are in euro, not in pound, तो उसके लिए interpretation is given. So they have two different currencies going on. One is pound, one is euro. Now with the introduction of euro, what should be done in accounting wise? They have given a interpretation for it, which is not applicable for India. We don't have two currencies, yaar. We have just one currency, that is your rupee. So that is not applicable. So again, that's why that has been removed. Introduction of euro doesn't apply to us. So if you just go down and see over here, Appendix 1 note corresponding to IFRIC is not issued as it is not relevant for companies. It doesn't apply to companies. Your Ind AS are not applicable to companies. Ind AS are not applicable to cooperative societies. So it is not relevant for companies. Your same way, note number 2, SIC 7 is not relevant in Indian context. Now just there is one or two typing mistake like this. Okay, here from income tax it will come on opposite side. The heading will come on opposite side. Appendix A to Ind AS 12, that's fine, and the heading should come outside. Same way here. This should come here, evaluating the substance of transaction. And the third one, service concession arrangement, should come here. There's a bit typing mistake. You can just take these things on the opposite side. Sir, are we going to learn all of these things in detail? I'm telling you, no. This is not FR. FR mein you learned it. Here we are just understanding the significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS. And when I say IFRS, it's not just IFRS. It's IAS, IFRS, SIC interpretation, IFRIC interpretations. Okay, let's start. So today we are finishing one thing. Today we'll finish one thing, significant difference between your Ind AS and IFRS. Next lecture, we'll finish the significant difference between IFRS and US GAAP. And then we'll have all the case studies. So coming to the significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS. Each topic which comes, I'll explain you what we have in Ind AS. And I'll also explain how the things are there in IFRS. And then we understand what differences are there. So each point coming over here, yes, I will discuss about Ind AS also. What did we have in Ind AS? I'll discuss in detail. So I am discussing Ind AS also in detail, but only for the points which are coming up. Same way, when I go to case studies, for each and every point which comes in case studies, yes, I will discuss that Ind AS part in detail. So don't think we are not doing anything about Ind AS. We are doing Ind AS also comparatively. We will be able to revise your entire Ind AS, but it will be as and when it comes in topic or in your case studies. Now, most important, read the things very slowly. Whenever you're doing kind of difference between IFRS and Ind AS or IFRS and US GAAP, this is all technical language. You need to read it very slowly. Once you read the thing slowly, your interpretation or understanding will improve. So let us start. Now, difference between your Ind AS and IFRS. And I already told you IFRS doesn't mean only IFRS. The IFRS include, the word IFRS will also include what? IAS, interpretations by SIC, interpretations by IFRIC. They are also included. Now, differences are divided in two parts. One they've given carve in, carve out. One they've given is carve in, carve out from IFRS. So what is difference in Ind AS compared to IFRS? They have carve in, carve out. They are kind of major topic difference. They are kind of the major differences, and consequential other changes will also come. We have one concept may change, uske karan consequential changes in other Ind AS or other basically things will be coming. So one is section 1 contains carve in, carve out. Carve in, carve out, and section 2 is other major changes. Now, so what's the difference between the word carve in, carve out? Carve out is something they have. It is there in IFRS, we modified it. Something which is there in IFRS, we modified it, that's carve out. Carve in, something which is not there in IFRS. Carve in, something which is not there in IFRS, we add it. They don't have it, we included something, that's carve in. You brought something in, that's carve in. You removed or you modified, that is carve out. So carve out are the changes which you have done to IFRS. It's the changes or modification you have done to IFRS to make it to the Indian scenario. Carve in, something which they don't have only, we introduced. Something which they don't have, we introduced. So if you want, we can just write at the top. Carve out is something which is there or not there. It is there in IFRS, but modified in Ind AS. So carve out is something which is there in IFRS but modified in Ind AS to make it adaptable to Indian scenario. And what is your carve in? Carve in is something which is not there in IFRS, but added in Ind AS. They don't have it, we have added it. That is nothing but your carve in. So carve out is something which is there in IFRS but modified in Ind AS to make it adaptable to Indian scenario. Carve in is something which is not there in IFRS, we have added it in Ind AS. These are major concepts. They talk about concept. Consequential changes are called other major changes. These are conceptual. Other major consequential changes can come. We don't call everything as carve in, carve out. Carve in, carve out is for the major things. Other things are separately taken. Okay. Please make sure you have a book with you. You are constantly writing. Those students who purchased ebook version, please take a printout of the book and then start your lectures. I'm telling you again, those people who are having an ebook, please ensure you take a printout, you have a hard copy with you, have a pencil in your hand, and always study. Basic things are most important. Okay, we start with the carve outs. So first of all, we start with carve out, then we'll go to carve in, and then we'll go to other major changes. So first we have carve out. What is carve out? Carve outs which are due to difference in application of accounting principles and practices and economic situations prevailing in India. They are difference in application due to what? Due to the situations or conditions prevailing in India. So we have modified the IFRS. We have modified the IFRS a bit to make it to Indian scenario. Whatever modifications we have done, there is something in IFRS, we changed it, that's carve out. They don't have a concept, we added it, that's a carve in. Okay, the carve out in simple words means modification done while adapting IFRS based on practices and economic conditions prevailing in India. Fine. Starting with what are the changes? Starting with what are the changes, we'll learn what is there in IFRS, what we have done it in Ind AS, what is there in IFRS, and what we have changed it in Ind AS. First, we have Ind AS 1. As per IFRS, read it very slowly. Read it very slowly. IAS 1 requires, in case of a loan liability, there's a loan liability, if any condition of loan agreement which was classified as non-current is breached. Okay, so there is a loan liability, any condition is breached on the reporting date, on your balance sheet date, you breached a condition. Loan is for 5 years, but it was subject to certain condition, like current ratio should be at least this much. There were some conditions put by them. If you violate a condition, now that loan becomes repayable on demand. If any condition is breached, then that loan becomes repayable on demand. And if that loan becomes repayable on demand, do we classify it as non-current or do we classify it as current? Do we classify it as non-current or do we classify it as current? So there is a loan liability, there is a condition breach. Then if that condition is breached, you needed a current ratio 2:1. Your current ratio is less. So you are violating the condition now. They can demand loan now only. So bank can demand the loan. Now the loan has become repayable on demand. Then that liability should be classified as long-term, that is non-current or current. Sir, it should be classified as current. Understandable. The loan is taken for 5 years subject to few conditions. If conditions are violated, loan becomes repayable on demand. If it has become repayable on demand, it will be treated as current liability. Now, this is what they have given. But they have said, even if the breach is rectified, before the books are approved, remember, after the year is over, then there will be a BOD meeting. They will approve the financial statement. Board of directors approve the financial statement. So even if the breach is rectified before the books are approved, still it will be treated as current liability only. So they say that loan liability, if any condition is breached, then such liability will be classified as current even if the breach has been rectified. Even if the breach has been rectified after the balance sheet date. So even if the breach has been rectified after the balance sheet date, still it will be regarded as a current liability. This is given under IFRS. Now, when I use IFRS, it includes IAS, it includes SIC, it includes IFIRC, everything. So, if you have taken a loan subject to conditions, it was a non-current loan, but the conditions have been violated. As on 31st March, the conditions have been violated. The loan has become repayable on demand. It will be treated or shown as current liability even if it has been rectified before the books are approved. Now, coming to Indian scenario, they say that there are so many conditions attached to loan. One, you have to have a current ratio this much. You should not default in payment. Once you default, the loan will become repayable on demand. Or you need to submit the stock statements on regular basis. So some are kind of procedural requirement, some are substantive requirement. So they say in India we have some procedural requirement like submitting stock statement, and some are substantive, very important. Like if you default, loan becomes repayable on demand. So some are substantive, some are basically kind of procedural, and sometimes there is a delay in procedural conditions which were there. We were required to submit the stock statement by 5th of next month. By chance it got delayed. Do you think bank will really recall the money? By chance it got late. Do you think for that procedural conditions का lapse, whether the bank will really recall the money? No. सर वो हमारे इंडिया में तो रिलेशंस होते हैं ना, वी हैव अ गुड रिलेशंस विद बैंकर्स. सर आपको भेजते हैं, नेक्स्ट वीक भेजते हैं, वी आर सेंडिंग यू नेक्स्ट वीक. तो व्हाट हैपेंस ओवर हियर इज, इफ सम प्रोसीजरल कंडीशंस आर ब्रिच्ड, we have required to submit the bank's stock statement by 5th of next month, we have breached it. But before the books are approved, pay attention, before the books are approved, the breach has been rectified, and the lender, the bank, the lender has agreed not to recall the loan. Okay, so year is over. We have also again here also we have breached the condition. But before the books are approved, the breach is rectified, and the lender has agreed. When did lender agree? After year is over, before the books are approved. Before the books are approved, if lender has agreed not to recall the loan, then on 31st March, we will show that loan not as a current liability, we will show it as non-current. So, if lender has agreed after the year end, before the books are approved, if lender has agreed, he will not recall the loan. If lender has agreed, he will not recall the loan, we will show it as non-current. IFRS mein it is shown as current. So even if the breach is rectified after the balance sheet date, they still show it as current liability. We understand the context. Reality, bank is not going to call back. They've agreed not to call back because the breach has been rectified. So now, before books are approved, this is known, we will show it as a non-current liability, not a current liability. So coming to Indian scenario, what they are telling. If Ind AS 1 clarifies that where there is a breach of material provision of long-term arrangement on or before the reporting date, and the liability became repayable on demand on reporting date. Liability became repayable on demand on reporting date. Entity does not classify it as a current if, the word very important is if, the lender has agreed after the reporting date but before the books are approved not to demand the payment. So if the lender has agreed after year end before the books are approved, after year end before the books are approved, if lender has agreed not to recall, then in that case for us we will show it as non-current liability. Okay, so if I just go by some example, 31st March 20, you have done a bridge, loan is repayable on demand. Loan is repayable on demand. That is 31st March. Now your books are approved on 31st May 20. If by this time the bridge is rectified, if by this time your bridge is rectified and the bank has agreed not to recall the loan, we will show it as non-current on 31st March. IFRS shows it as current on 31st March. So they, simple words, may treat it as a non-adjusting event. We treat it as adjusting event because Indian scenario there are some procedural conditions also. If that procedural conditions are violated, theoretically loan becomes repayable on demand, but bank will not call it. So if they have agreed not to recall the loan, we will show it as non-current. Okay, so this is basically your first point. There are many times questions asked out of this. So tick that first one as important. Tick that first one as important. If you just want to write in detail, basically the example, we can just write it over here. Suppose 31st March 20. There is a long-term loan. Condition breached, and so there's a long-term loan, there's a conditions breached, and so the loan has become repayable on demand. I just write it again. 31st March 20, there is long-term loan, condition breached, so loan becomes repayable on demand. Okay, now 31st May 20, your board of directors approve the financial statement. Now, during this time, after year end till the books are approved, after year end till the books are approved, if the breach is rectified and the bank has agreed not to recall the loan, if the breach is rectified and the bank has decided not to recall the loan, they have agreed, unka permission is there, then we will classify this loan on 31st March as non-current. IFRS may they classify it as current. So they don't see subsequent approval of bank which you got. Bank has agreed before the books are approved. They are not seeing it. They treat it as non-adjusting. We treat it as adjusting. So suppose the breach is rectified plus lender agreed. Lender agreed not to recall. Not to recall the loan. They will not call back the loan. In that case, we will show it as a non-current liability. We treat it as a adjusting event before the books are approved. So we try to see the real scenario. Reality mein they are not going to call back. The better is to show it as non-current. IFRS mein they show it as current. I hope I'm clear. Okay, so this was the example. If anybody wants, you can write it over there only. So how is loan disclosed on 31st March 20? Under your IFRS, it will be a current liability. Under your Ind AS, it is non-current. IFRS, it will be a current liability. Under Ind AS, it will be a non-current liability. If you want, please write it over there only. You don't need a separate notebook for this subject. Solutions may partly, in your case study also, part solutions are given. Part solutions will write over there only. The blank space is given in your material, will write over there only. So please don't prepare a new book for this subject. Write it there only, adjust it. This is one change. They don't consider whether the lender has agreed it subsequently before the books are approved. Whether the lender has agreed or not, they don't consider it. They treat it as a non-adjusting event. They will be basically showing it as current liability. We will show it as non-current. Okay, I'm moving ahead. This was the first point of carve out. Okay, going to the second. So reason they've given under Indian banking system, the loan agreement generally contains a large number of conditions. Some conditions are basically your which type? Substantive, very important, like default should not be there, current ratio should be this, and some are basically kind of procedural. You need to submit the stock statement every month, and many time procedural condition may lapse are there. But it doesn't mean that they will call the money. We have rectified the breach and the bank has agreed they are not going to recall. We have rectified the breach and the bank has agreed they are not going to recall. In that case, we will show it as non-current liability. Reason is fine, you can read it. We already discussed it. You can read on your own. Now there's a question. How should the loan be classified at year end? See the word. How should the loan be classified at year end? Under IFRS, for which A Limited has breached the debt covenant. You already violated the debt covenant, means conditions. Covenant is nothing but your condition. So condition you already breached. If you already breached, Ind AS may we can show it as what? Non-current if the breach is rectified, lender has agreed. But that's under Ind AS. Question asks for IFRS. If you breach the condition, loan becomes repayable on demand. If it becomes repayable on demand, you have to show it as current liability, even if it is rectified before the books are approved. It will be current. Okay, the current liability only if the lender demands payment. Non-current liability even if the lender demands payment. Current liability even if the lender agreed. even if the lender agreed after the reporting date but before authorization, that's approval. We use the word approval of financial statement, they use the word authorization of financial statement. So over here, current liability, even if the lender has agreed after the reporting date before the authorization of financial statement not to demand the repayment. Yes, even if they have decided not to demand, under your IFRS, it will still be your current liability. Answer is C. If it was an Ind AS question, answer will be D. If it was an Ind AS question, answer will be D. Non-current liability, if the lender has agreed after reporting date before the books are approved that he will not call, so we will show it as non-current. So that was under Ind AS. If you want, you can just write under Ind AS. Answer will be D. So under Ind AS, answer will be D, but under your IFRS, the answer is C. This question comes many times. Okay, IFRS 10, the next difference is actually the same. It's actually the same. IFRS 10, event occurring after the reporting period. So they said that if breach is there, afterwards it is rectified, bank has agreed not to recall, they treat it as non-adjusting, we treat it as adjusting. The rectification of breach after the reporting date is a non-adjusting, but what do? We treat it as adjusting. This is as per IFRS. As per Ind AS 1, we treat it as adjusting. We already done it, I'm not going in detail. We have already done it. I'm not going in detail of this point. Next, your Ind AS 28. Your Ind AS 28 is investments in associate and joint venture. How do we account for investment in associate and joint venture? Now go to your consolidation chapter, which we did. So in your consolidation chapter, Ind AS 110 was consolidation. Then we had Ind AS 27, separate financial statement. Ind AS 28, investment in joint venture and associates. Now pay attention. Whenever we are doing consolidation, they're telling that the accounting policies which are used should be same for like transactions and event in similar circumstances. Yes, that wordings has to be remembered. So your accounting policy of your parent, subsidiary, or associates which are consolidated. Associates ke profits are coming in your book. Remember equity method. Subsidiaries are consolidated by full consolidation. Their assets and liabilities will come, investments will go away. Even if we hold 80%, we will add 100% assets and liabilities. For 20%, there's a NCI coming in your books. But for associates and joint venture, their assets and liabilities don't come in our book. For associates and joint venture, their assets and liabilities don't come in books. Or what do we do? For associates and joint venture, we follow equity method. In your standalone financial, there is an investment. In your CFS, in your consolidated financial also, there will be investment. Wahan pe bhi investment, yahan pe bhi investment. So what is the difference? Here we will add the share in post acquisition profits or loss. Standalone book mein investments are there. Mostly your investment in joint venture, subsidiaries, associate, they appear at cost, or they can also be as per Ind AS 109, but mostly they appear at cost. Income comes only if dividend is declared by that company. If dividend declared, there's an income in standalone. CFS equity method, whether they have declared dividend or not, whether associate joint venture has declared dividend or not, we will add our share of post acquisition profit or loss. So our share of post acquisition profit loss added to investment, opposite added in consolidated P&L. But now their profits should also be based on similar, matlab same accounting policy, uniform accounting policy for like transactions and events in similar circumstances. Okay, so what does IFRS say? So IFRS say while applying equity method, the accounting policies used should be similar. The associate ka accounting policies should be similar only. If they are different, the financial statements of, if they are different, what do we do? If I have a different accounting policy, sir, we did a question on subsidiary. Subsidiary, associate may be same. If your subsidiary or your associate has a different accounting policy, their financial statements are adjusted. Kiske? There. Subsidiary or associate or joint ventures financial statements are adjusted to bring it in line with the policy followed by parent, and then they are used for consolidation. The financial statement of subsidiary, associate, joint venture are adjusted to bring it in line with the policy followed by parent only for what? For like transactions and event in similar circumstances. So I need to modify their financials, then they are consolidated. So that is what they have written. So uniform accounting policies should be used if the associates policy are different. So what we should do, the investor should change the financial statement of associate by using same accounting policy. The financial statement of associates are modified to make it in line with the policy followed by parent. Then our share of post-acquisition profits are added. This is over there. India may, we just change one thing. We added the word unless impracticable to do so. We just added the word unless impracticable to do so. So what did we do? We have just added the word unless impracticable to do so. That is the word added. So why? They've given example of regional rural banks. Imagine there's a bank, there are some small regional rural bank, they operate in rural areas. Suppose one of the RRB is my associate. Or imagine a small partnership firm is my associate. So what happens is, whenever that RRB is a small partnership firm, they are my associate, and when I prepare consolidated financials, I follow equity method. If I tell them they were following AS, to them Ind AS were not applicable. So that small partnership firm or RRBs or some, they are following AS, to them Ind AS were not applicable. Now I can't tell that small partnership firm or RRBs to follow Ind AS because they won't be able to digest. पता ही नहीं चलेगा ये क्या है. So that's why the word unless impracticable to do so. So if your associate is a very small enterprise like RRB, regional rural bank, operating only in rural areas, where do you get people to apply Ind AS over there? RRBs, or say a small partnership, they are working in a very small way in some small town, village kind of thing. They were following AS because to them Ind AS directly doesn't apply. Now somebody invested more than 20% over there. One company invested more than 20% over there. Now that company has Ind AS. Associate ko Ind AS becomes applicable. So consolidation ke time, their policy, our policy should be same, but we have one word unless impracticable to do so. So certain associates, RRBs, like being associate of nationalized bank, are not in a position to use Ind AS as it will be too advanced for them. So can we claim this exemption for other reasons, like we have a partnership firm or so? You may try, but auditor can give a modified report. So this is a management's call. Sir, there's a company, they have an associate, they've invested more than 20% in one partnership firm. They have associate invested more than 20% in partnership firm. When I prepare a CFS, I follow equity method. Now partnership firm was following not Ind AS, they were following AS. But as they become associate of ours, they also need to follow Ind AS. But sir, for them it's too advanced. They are following only AS. Chalega? And AS wala profit I'm adding. Is it okay? It's up to you. Based on materiality, you need to take a call. And that's why the word is unless impracticable to do so. That is added. So in India, some associates might be very small. For them, Ind AS becomes too advanced. See, Ind AS ka rule, if it is applicable to you, to your subsidiary holding associates, it becomes applicable. The associate ko bhi Ind AS is applicable. If it becomes too advanced for them, they may not apply it, and based on materiality, effect might not be huge. So management may decide they can continue with their AS only. While consolidating, we are adding their AS wala profit. The policies are getting different. What should we do? It's okay if it is materiality point of view, it's not that big. Okay, coming to the next one. We have Ind AS 32. Let's see what does your Ind AS 32 carve out says. Very important to understand the language. Read it very slowly. Okay, first, as per your IFRS, so they are telling, as per IAS 32, equity conversion option in case of foreign currency convertible bonds. Equity conversion option in case of foreign currency convertible bonds. Simple words में FCCB is considered as a derivative liability. Embedded in the bond. And if something is a derivative, gain or loss on account of change in fair value goes to P&L. Gain or loss on account of change in fair value is recognized in P&L. Okay, so now what they are telling? They are telling that if there is a foreign currency convertible bonds, and if they are convertible into fixed number of shares, what is to be done? If they are convertible into variable number of shares, if something is convertible into variable number of share, whole instrument is a liability instrument. But if they are convertible into fixed number of shares, then we call it as a compound financial instrument. In your compound financial instrument, I need to divide in two parts: equity component, liability component. Now, if it is a foreign currency convertible bonds are denominated in foreign currency, conversion will happen in INR. So as per IFRS, they say that equity component is not a equity component. They say it's a derivative element. And derivative elements are to be fair valued every time, and the fair valuation will go to your P&L. Okay, so just pay attention. Don't write as of now what they are telling. Suppose we have, I'm talking first of IFRS. There is FCCB, foreign currency convertible bond, convertible into variable number of shares. How many shares they will give? It's not fixed. It is variable number of shares. Then it will be treated as liability instrument fully. It is fully treated as a liability instrument. If convertible into variable number of shares. Now, FCCBs convertible into fixed number of shares. If it is convertible into fixed number of shares, we call it as an equity instrument. Remember, in India we call it as equity instrument, but conversion has to be in fixed number of shares. Okay, now If it is convertible into fixed number of shares, it's divided in two parts. They don't call it as equity component, they are calling it as derivative element, which is embedded in the bond. Because bond is in foreign currency, conversion will happen. Suppose bond is basically in foreign currency, rate of shares might be in INR, so that is, they are telling it's a derivative element, and we have a liability element. Okay, for this derivative element there will be fair value through P&L. Every time it will be fair value through P&L. For this liability element, we'll record the interest based on effective interest rate. Okay, so what they're telling, if there is a foreign currency convertible bond, the conversion option which you are having, that's a derivative element. They don't regard it as equity. The reason is the conversion, the bonds are not in INR, the bonds are there in foreign currency, and suppose the shares will be issued later on, wo INR mein hai, so they treat it as a derivative element. This is, I just tried in bracket, your option of conversion. They treat it as derivative element, and they will account it as fair value through P&L. Now coming to your Ind AS. What does Ind AS say? If there is FCCB convertible into variable number of shares, then it is treated as liability instrument fully. It's same as your IFRS. Pay attention, don't write, I'll give you time. But if there is FCCB convertible into fixed number of shares, we divide it in two parts. If it is convertible into fixed number of shares, we call it as equity instrument. Just because the exercise price is in foreign currency, just because the exercise price or the bonds are denominated in foreign currency, we don't say that it becomes a derivative. Just because the bonds are denominated in foreign currency, we still call it as equity instrument only, or equity element. And this is a liability element. Your equity element is nothing but option of conversion. The option of conversion which you are having, we call it as the equity element, and this will be something is a equity element, there is no fair valuation. If something is a equity element, there is no fair valuation. Just recall your chapter of share-based payment. If share-based payment, the shares which we have to give to employees, if it is equity settled, employees are to be given shares. If it is equity settled, the fair value is not remeasured. If it is cash settled, remember wahan pe if it is cash settled, the fair value was every time remeasured. So option of conversion over here, we treat it as a equity instrument or a equity element. So no fair valuation. And for the liability element, it will be interest based on effective interest rate. Now sir, how do I find out the liability element and equity element? You've done it in Ind AS 109. How do I find out the liability element and the equity element? See, whenever something is convertible, always uska rate of interest is bit lower. And normal bonds which are to be redeemed in cash only. They have a higher interest rate, and this convertible bonds will have a lower interest rate because you are getting one benefit. You can convert your bonds into shares if you want. So only cash, yahan pe cash or shares. I give you option. When I give you option, you choose whichever is beneficial. You'll choose whichever is beneficial. The same way, I'll have some charge against you. I'll deduct the rate of interest. So yahan pe rate of interest is less. Normal bonds mein rate of interest is more. So now iska, whatever future values you're going to get, discount it by the normal interest rate if there was no conversion. So jo bhi isme, in this bonds, whatever you issued, whatever cash flows are going to go out, you find the present value based on discount rate of the normal bonds. So whatever value you get, that's a liability element. Balance is equity element. The point over here is whenever your FCCBs are convertible into fixed number of shares, we have liability component, equity component. They don't call it as equity component, they call it as derivative. Reason is the bonds were designated in foreign currency. So they are telling how forex also comes into picture. So they say it's dependent on forex rate. So they call it as derivative element, and as that is a derivative element, they will do a fair valuation of it every time, which will go to P&L. So this is as per your IFRS. If it is convertible in variable number of shares, treated as fully liability. Fixed number of share, option of conversion is treated as a derivative element. This is the change. Option of conversion is treated as a derivative element. They will do a fair value through P&L every time. And India mein that option of conversion will be treated as a equity component or equity element, and that will not be fair valued. So they are just telling, just because the options are in just because the bonds are in foreign currency, conversion will be in INR, that does not make it a derivative element. अब इससे प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है, so we feel that the treatment, according to us, the treatment given in this IAS 32 is wrong. If you take it as derivative, you do a fair valuation, share price goes up, option, आपके पास जो right है, वो right का value also goes up. Share price goes down, the right का value also will go down. You don't have shares, you have an option, right to buy the shares. You have a right to buy the share. If share price went up, you will be getting fixed shares. If share price goes up, your right ka value goes up. If share price goes down, your right ka value is going down. So there will be a huge P&L fluctuation coming every time. And we say that according to us, that should not be a P&L fluctuation. Fixed number of shares are to be given. It should be treated as a equity instrument. And that equity component, there should not be any fair valuation. Okay, if you want, you can just write it somewhere. Before that, let us just read what is given. So what is the carve out over here? A conversion option in a foreign currency convertible bond to acquire fixed number of your own equity shares. To acquire fixed number of equity shares is classified as equity instrument even if the exercise priced in, if the exercise price isn't fixed in any currency. It doesn't matter, share ka price jo fix kiya based on dollars, based on rupee, that does not make it a derivative element. Number of shares to be given are fixed. We say that it will be treated as a equity instrument. Reason why we have this carve out, we feel the treatment given in IAS 32 is not appropriate. It's not appropriate. Why? So the number of shares, since the number of shares remains fixed, amount at which they will be converted is also fixed. Amount at which they will be converted is also fixed. The only thing is it's in foreign currency. Merely the difference in currency should not affect the nature of derivative. So just because it is in foreign currency, don't make it a derivative liability. It has to be a equity instrument only, and equity instruments will not be fair valued. And if I continue as per their view, so PNL will fluctuate much also. Okay, so this is basically given. Again I repeat, if there is FCCBs which are convertible into variable number of shares, fully liability. If FCCBs are convertible into fixed number of shares, okay, we divide in two parts. One is normally equity component and liability component. Over them, for IFRS they say it's not a equity component, it's a derivative liability. So that's a derivative element. Derivative element will be fair valued every time, and liability component will have interest based on effective interest rate. Ind AS mein, we will not call it as a derivative liability embedded in bond. We will still call it as a equity instrument. Okay, now if you want, you can just write down this. Now if you want, you can just write down this. Write down fast, please. Still we are under carve out, page number 2 or 3 only. Adjusted somewhere in the book. So just because the bonds are denominated in foreign currency or the exercise price is in foreign currency, that does not make it a derivative liability. We will still take it as equity instrument because the number of shares to be issued is fixed. And whenever something is a compound financial instrument, how do we allocate the liability component and equity component? We find the liability component first. Whatever are the outflows which will come, uska, assuming they don't go for conversion, uska present value based on interest rate of a bond without conversion. Based on interest rate of a bond which is going on in market without conversion, उसे आप discount करो तो you will get some value. Balance is the equity component. Sums will be coming up in case study. Currently we are just understanding theory. This was as per your IFRS. Write down as per Ind AS. FCCB is foreign currency convertible bonds. See, I can't take up full Ind AS 109, or basically that embedded derivative concept in full, that you already learned in FR. That Ind AS 109 itself takes 15 hours, man. We can't take entire thing again, and that's why we say once you are thorough with FR, then only start with the subject. Something convertible into fixed number of share is an equity instrument. Something convertible into variable number of share is a liability instrument. Okay, let us move ahead, going to the next one. This was your Ind AS 32. Next is Ind AS 101, your first time adoption. Ind AS 101. There are very small changes over here. First, as per IFRS, the previous gap, what was going on before? The previous gap is defined as, so IFRS 1 defines the previous gap as basis of accounting that first time adopter used. It's a basis of accounting that a first time adopter used immediately before adopting IFRS. The previous gap is something which we are using before adopting IFRS. Before adopting IFRS, what you are using, that's a previous gap. India, we have just made a small change. It's a basis of accounting that the first time adopter used. It is a base of accounting that the first time adopter used for its reporting requirement in India before adopting Ind AS. So there is a word previous gap under IFRS, there is a word previous gap under Ind AS. When IFRS came, UK entities had something earlier going on. Now they are coming to IFRS. Like from AS we switched over to Ind AS. From AS we switched over to Ind AS. They also had their own past accounting standard. From there they switched over to IFRS or IAS. So what was going earlier, that is a previous gap. Yahan pe they are telling what was going earlier in India, that is nothing but a previous gap. So tell me one thing, all companies in India were following previously what? Now okay, you're following Ind AS. Now you're following Ind AS. In India, previously you're following what? Your accounting standards. The financial statement prepared as per Companies Accounting Standard Rules 2006. So it makes it mandatory that everybody should have followed accounting standards. This change makes it mandatory for Indian entities to consider financial statement whichever prepared as per accounting standards. So earlier it was accounting standard, previous gap was accounting standard, now it is Ind AS. Kuch nahi hai, they are just telling previous gap is financials, the gap which was used earlier, the accounting which was done earlier. How? Yahan pe they are telling the gap which was used earlier in India. That's the only thing. Iska koi meaning is not there. Going to the second one. Second one is important. Yeah, IAS 32 which we did, mark that also is important. IAS 32 which we did, that also is important. Now, coming to your PP, your carrying amount of PP. This is first time adoption. When Ind AS started. Same way when IFRS started. When IFRS started, there was a PP ka value going on. Now they're telling when IFRS started, the PP value should start based on either the fair value of PP or retrospective application of your IFRS or IAS 16. So you apply retrospectively IAS 16. Go back if IAS 16 was applied since beginning, or you take the fair value of PP today. In India, we have done a change. You can apply retrospectively your Ind AS from when you're switching from AS to Ind AS. This is when you're switching to AS from AS to Ind AS. PP ka value should start at. AS mein values were different. Ind AS mein it's basically different valuation. So PP ka value should start at one option. Apply Ind AS 16 retrospectively. Second option, take a fair value of PP on this date. Third option, whatever is the carrying amount whatever is the carrying amount in books will become deemed cost of PPE under Ind AS. So one option we added, whatever is the carrying amount will become deemed cost. Let's see over here. So IFRS 1 first time adoption, when they had from their standards to IFRS, when they had it, what was given? The items of PPE, date of transition, the items of PPE ka value should be determined. How? By applying PPE retrospectively or at fair value. Either you apply PPE retrospectively Ind AS 16 or IFRS basically IAS 16, or second option given to you was you take a fair value of PPE, that should be the value at which you start. Yahan pe we have an additional option. We have an additional option to use the carrying amount of PPE on the date of transition. The carrying amount of PPE, whatever in our books is the carrying amount. Gross block less accumulated depreciation is the carrying amount. Gross block less accumulated depreciation is the carrying amount. That carrying amount will become deemed cost. That carrying amount will become the deemed cost under your Ind AS. So that's only additional option available. Sir, why do we have it? Imagine some companies have a very old assets. Very old, yaar, बहुत पुराने assets है. The thing is, to apply Ind AS 16 retrospectively is difficult, and to find out their fair value is also difficult. Very old kind of things are there. So in old companies, retrospective application of Ind AS 16 or fair value on date of transition may not be possible for that old asset, and that's why we said that whatever is the carrying amount is gross block minus accumulated depreciation. Whatever is carrying amount, you make it as deemed cost under IFRS, and practically most of the company followed this only. So practically most of the company, कौन जाएगा fair valuation में? So simple is whatever is carrying amount, make it as deemed cost. So that's the second change. One, we are telling our previous gap is something which was going on in India. Second, whenever PPEs from AS to Ind AS we switched, it should be PPE should come at either you apply Ind AS 116 retrospectively or fair value of PPE, or carrying amount itself becomes deemed cost. So that carrying amount wala option is additional under Ind AS. Third one, long-term foreign currency monetary item. Long-term foreign currency monetary item. This is related to AS 11, Accounting Standard 11. Now AS 11 mein they had said, if you have a long-term foreign currency monetary item, monetary means amount to be paid or received is fixed. Monetary means amount to be paid or received is fixed. Imagine simple example. Long-term loan which you have taken, foreign currency mein. Long-term foreign currency loan which you have taken, you need to bring the loan to closing rate. You need to bring the loan to your closing rate. So foreign currency loan is there, it's a long-term monetary item, you need to bring it to closing rate. If that loan is related to fixed asset, increase decrease in forex, whenever I'm bringing that foreign currency loan at closing rate, uska increase decrease I can adjust in fixed asset only, if it is related to fixed asset. So if that loan is not related to fixed asset, do you take in PNL? Your AS 11 allowed you to amortize it over the period of loan. So whatever your increase decrease coming due to change in foreign exchange rate, long-term foreign currency monetary item, if related to fixed asset, it is added deducted to fixed asset. If it is related to other than fixed asset, it is to be amortized over the period of loan. Just go down, you will see the reason. Just go down first, you see the reason, then I'll come back. Okay, so your AS 11 provides an option. It's an option. Sir, I want to take to PNL. It's fine. You can take to PNL. Forex difference, if you want, you can take it to PNL. This was an option to recognize long-term foreign currency monetary items in the statement of P&L as a part of cost of PP or to defer it over the period of loan in case it was not related to fixed asset. So in case it was not related to fixed asset, if you had a translation foreign currency long-term monetary item, long-term foreign currency monetary item was there, loan taken in foreign currency related to fixed asset, exchange difference, option was to take it to fixed asset. Loss you add it in fixed asset, profit you deduct from fixed asset. Gain loss foreign currency ka. If it is other than fixed asset, no need to take the full loss right now in P&L. You could have amortized it over the period of loan. This was just an option. If you wanted, you could have taken it directly to P&L also. Forex gain loss normally goes in P&L. Okay, this was the option allowed under AS 11. Continuing the option, we said, if you have such foreign currency long-term monetary item, you can continue this now also. So IFRS में such thing is not there. यहाँ पे we are having it. So there is no provision in IFRS. What we have, the first time adopter may continue the policy adopted. See the word, may continue the policy adopted for accounting of exchange difference arising on translation. You convert at closing rate, उसको translation बोलते हैं. Translation of foreign currency item recognized in statement of P&L for immediate period ending before this thing started. Means before your Ind AS starts, earlier your forex difference on long-term foreign currency monetary item related to fixed asset, you are taking in fixed asset. Not related to fixed asset, you are amortizing. You can continue it now also. This is just to match with what was going on earlier. We are still allowing you. This is option to you. Now onwards, you want to take to P&L, you can take it to P&L. But if you want to continue what you were doing earlier, you can continue. Okay, so this is your long-term foreign currency monetary item. As per AS 11, long-term foreign currency monetary item, the translation, whenever you bring it to the closing rate related to fixed asset, option was you can take it in fixed asset. Other than fixed asset, option was to amortized over the period of loan. If you don't want to go for this, you could have gone to P&L directly also. If you are following that option under Ind AS, if you want to continue, you are allowed to continue. Next, we have Ind AS 103 business combination. Next, we have Ind AS 103, which is business combination. This we already done in class also in FR. So what was there in Ind AS 103? Now pay attention. Gain on bargain purchase. You acquired someone's business, you're paying less. Gain on bargain purchase as per IFRS goes to P&L. Your bargain purchase gain is to be recognized in P&L as an income. As per IFRS, it goes to P&L. Our context, your gain on bargain purchase. If the reason for bargain purchase are clear, if the reason that other person was hard pressed to sell it, sir, he was in a hurry to sell it. If the reason for gain on bargain purchase is clear, we take it in OCI. From OCI, it goes to capital reserve. If reason for gain on bargain purchase is clear, we take it in OCI. From OCI, it goes to capital reserve. If reason for gain on bargain purchase not clear, we directly take it in capital reserve. So what do we have? We don't take it in P&L. We say this is not a normal profit. This is a capital profit. And this should not be used for dividends. So our context is, if reason for gain on bargain purchase is A, clear, then OCI, and from OCI it goes to capitalism. It will come in OCI and then from OCI to capitalism. If reason for gain on bargain purchase is not clear, it will be directly in capital reserve. Okay, they take gain on bargain purchase in P&L, we take gain on bargain purchase. If the reasons are clear, OCI to capital reserve. If reasons are not clear, directly capital reserve. Sir, what is OCI? What is OCI? Now your statement of P&L. Your statement of P&L is divided in two parts, normal P&L, OCI. Your statement of P&L is divided in two parts, normal P&L, OCI. Sir, what comes in OCI? We did it at the time of Schedule 3. So Schedule 3, we spent 4 lectures only on Schedule 3. So what are the items coming in OCI was discussed at that time. I'm not going to discuss again. Okay, so as per Ind AS 103, gain on bargain purchase, if the reasons are clear, OCI to capital reserve, not clear, directly capital reserve. IFRS 3 may, what do? They take it in P&L. According to us, it should not be a normal profit distributable by dividend. That's why we don't do this. Okay, so they've written as per Ind AS, it's recognized in OCI and accumulated in equity as capital reserve, unless there is no clear reason. If there is no clear reason, in which case it is directly recognized in capital reserve. It's directly recognized in capital reserve. If you want, you can just write down this. Chalo, move ahead. Chalo, 4 pages only done. Okay, next. We have IFRS 115 related to revenue from contract with customers. IFRS 115 related to revenue from contract with customers. Sir, what is the carve out? All penalties related to your contract with customers. All penalties related to contract with customers under your IFRS are treated as a part of variable consideration. So all type of penalties in performance of contract should be considered in nature of variable consideration. If there are penalties attached in our contract, if you supply goods by this date, this much is the contract price. If you supply late, contract price is reduced by this much. So all penalties, they're telling, will form a part of variable consideration. We just adjust it in consideration. In India, they're telling your penalties go by the substance. So we have made a carve out telling the penalties shall be accounted as per what? Substance of contract. Some penalties are related to transaction price. If you supply by this date, this much price. If you supply late, this much penalty. If basically a penalty is related to transaction price, it's a part of variable consideration adjusted in consideration only. If it is a part of transaction price. But there are some penalties which are not related to transaction price. India mein to what happens is, transaction price is decided, everything is done. Later some issue came up. Quality not good, this not good, and there is some dispute coming and they deduct a part of our payment. We have a penalty applicable. So there was nothing in the contract. Later on this all comes up, we directly take it in P&L. Later on such kind of things comes up, we directly take it in P&L. If penalty is very much important in determining transaction price, then it is a part of your variable consideration. If contract it's written delivery within 30 days, 1 lakh is the price. after 30 days 95,000 is the price. So whether I should take 1 lakh or 95 depends on when you will be able to deliver, and that we have to expect, that we have to basically kind of probabilities and all that will be involved. So wahan pe it's a part of variable consideration. So wherever they are directly linked with the transaction price, the variable consideration, later if they come up something which was not thought, then it will directly go to P&L. So IFRS, all type of penalties in the performance of contract are regarded as variable consideration ke part. In India, those penalties, we go by substance, those penalties which are inherent. The penalties which are inherent in determining transaction price are a part of variable consideration. Otherwise, we take it in P&L assuming the transaction price is constant. Okay, this is basically your 115. All your carve outs are over. All your carve outs. Bas sir, itna hi, yeah. I tell you, these are just few things. Uske karan, corresponding changes coming in other places are there. We'll come to that. So this were the carve outs which were given. Now carve in, which we have added, which was not there in IFRS. Which was not there in IFRS. Carve in. Now there's one carve in only. There's only one carve in Ind AS 103. Ind AS 103 mein, if you remember, we have a separate accounting given for common control business combination, CCBC. For common control business combination, we have a separate accounting given over here, that's Appendix C to your Ind AS 103. So CCBC, how to account, we have a separate set of guidance. Such guidance are not there under IFRS. So how to account for CCBC, common control business combination. What is common control business combination? Control before and after the business combination remains with the same entity or entities. Control before and after remains with the same person or persons, and the control is not transitory. So that was CCBC. CCBC ka accounting we used to have all at book values. Yaad karo, it don't have any fair values coming. All assets and liabilities are recorded at book values. So that was your CCBC. Pooling of interest method was used. So IFRS is silent about CCBC accounting. We have added Appendix C to our Ind AS 103. So IFRS excludes business combination under common control. Uske liye they don't have anything. We have a specific guidance. So Carvin Appendix C gives guidance in this regard. This is for entities under common control. So sir, what do they really do? What do they really do? Do they record at fair values? Do they record at book values like we do? They have to develop their own accounting policy. So IFRS is silent about how to account for CCBC. So they will develop their own accounting policy, whether they want to have like a acquisition accounting, fair values pay everything, or they want to keep at book values. They need to develop their accounting policies. India mein specifically it has been given. Okay, that's it. This is your carve in, carve out. Other major changes, I'm not taking it now. I'll take it in the next class. Other major changes, I'm not taking it right now. I'll take it in next class. So we just started with the subject. We understood what we are going to learn in the subject. It's significant difference between your Ind AS and IFRS. Significant difference between your IFRS and US GAAP. That is what we need to learn. We started with significant difference between Ind AS and IFRS. We did carve in, carve out. Other major changes which are not carve in, carve out, they have been given, which is pending. Okay, we keep it up till here. Just one sentence for you. Success is not by doing great things. Success is not by doing great things. It's by doing small things with great discipline. I told you last 6 months or 1 year of yours, if you are disciplined, you know this is the time for my studies, this is the time of my break, this is my wake up time, this is my sleep time. If you are disciplined, rest assured you don't have any problem. So success is not by doing great things. You don't have to do anything great. You just have to do small things with great discipline. Okay, see you all tomorrow. Tata, bye-bye, take care.